Okay, welcome back to the Nditha Mindset Show with me, Irene Pato. And in the show today, I'm speaking to Mr. Ben Kananza. He is the former managing director of Nedbank Malawi, and he has over 22 years experience in the corporate world, 7 of which were in manufacturing, and the rest were in finance and banking. And we want to, you don't just become that. You go through a process to become that. You hold a Nditha mindset to become that particular person. And so we want to pick his brain to hear more about his journey, but also in the course of hearing his journey to pick the lessons for our own journeys as well. I believe that our stories are powerful, and we have to tell them. We have to tell them, and by telling our stories, we empower ourselves to empower each other. I hope that this audio is going to work this time around, and I hope that I'll be able to hear him just fine. Apparently, everyone else can hear him, but me. Hi, Ben.
Hi there. Are you able to hear me now?
Welcome back.
Thank you. Are you hearing me now?
I can hear you, but faint.
Okay, let's see how far this takes us to.
What's happening with my phone? Oh God. All right. Okay. Yeah. Hello?
Hello?
Yes. Now I hear you. Yes! All
Okay.
right. God. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Okay. Welcome, Ben. Let's have a proper conversation.
It will be proper this
All
time.
right.
Yeah.
All right. So I was
Great.
the one who was missing out on everything else that you were saying. Can you just recap? I'm sure for somebody who's going to be catching this for the first time, they don't know all the drama we've been through to be here. But now that we're here, can we start all over again? Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I am a finance person by training. I studied ACCA, and I'm a fellow of the Chartered Association. I'm a fellow of the Association of Chartered Certified Accountants, and I also went on to do my MBA with the Debbie University. Currently, I work at NIF as a head of finance, but I've been in the finance sector for quite a while. I started off at Malawi Savings Bank, moved to Standard Bank. I was also at Nedbank. I worked with some financial organization in Botswana called Letshego Financial Holdings. And most recently, I joined the National Economic Empowerment Fund. So that has been my journey in terms of career. Prior to the banking sector, I used to work in the manufacturing sector with a company called Afrox these days. We used to call it BOC gases then. Yeah, so pretty much in summary, that's what I've been about.
Mm-hmm. Wow, what a rich career journey that you've had and you continue to have. I'm inquisitive to find out that now that you're here, who was Ben when he was growing up, as a young chap growing up? Did you envision yourself holding all these important positions? What was your mindset like? Like, what was your dream? What did you want to become?
I think when you're starting off under 10, there are so many things in your head, including trying to be a pilot. So every time you see a plane flying above your head, you think you'll become one. But I must say that when I was in secondary school, that's when I started thinking about something big. My parents started off as being teachers, both of them. My dad was a teacher, my mother was a teacher. My dad at some point switched careers into property and real estates. But my mother, being a teacher, just wanted you to be successful. And so the vision was always progressive. When you're in primary school, you wanted to make sure you're selected to secondary school. When you're in secondary school, you wanted to go to college.
Yes.
But at some point, I think I started having a feeling that when I go to college, maybe I want to study economics. I also wanted to be an architect. There was a point I strongly felt I needed to be an architect because I was very good with my geometry. So I liked shapes, I liked seeing buildings, and I liked seeing the built environment. But eventually I settled for accountancy. So I went on to do accountancy and pursued my ACCA and then went on to do my MBA. and then the rest followed within my financial career. So I worked in the manufacturing sector, but I think I needed to make a switch into the financial sector. And I thought that's where I built my forte, and I've been since comfortable in there. But growing up as a kid, I just wanted to be successful in my studies. And for me, that was a driving big force for pretty much a bulk of it. And that is one thing that also helps me to start inspiring young people about careers, because I can tell you that I was one of those where you're finishing your Form 4 and you were not sure what career options are there in life. Apart from some people coming to tell you that there are all these colleges. Yes, there were colleges, but what do they do in those colleges? It was
Yes.
so unclear at some point, at that point, yeah.
Very good point. Very good point about inspiring young people and giving them information that they need to make better decisions about what or who they want to be. Because really, you reach Form 4 and you have no idea what it is that you're going to be, and we need that. We need that input from people that have been there, have done that, to be able to inspire our young people. That said, though, were you one of those people that were just generally smart in college, or you had to work hard, you had to study hard, or you were just like a genius?
I actually don't like the idea of just having a genius who doesn't work hard. Sometimes it's not the best of things. But I
Yes.
must appreciate that I was one of those who, when I put my heart to something, it always worked out. The intelligence part was there, and thank God for that grace. But I believe the working hard part came in. I remember one of my mentors taught me about the power of 4Ds at that point. He said, for you to be successful, you need to be disciplined, you need to be determined, you need to be destiny conscious, but also above all, you need to be diligent, which involves working hard. So I know so many smart kids who don't work hard, it doesn't work out. So a combination of both, yes, being intelligent, but also working very hard at anything is very important. So I would say I'm a product of hard work more than just being an intelligent person.
Okay. All right. Very, very important to mention, because sometimes when we see people that have, made something out of their lives, we just think that they just got it on a silver platter, or they're just geniuses. I think this show has got a wide audience, and some of our audiences are students, and it's important that they get to understand that you don't just arrive, but you need to put in the work, and I love the 4Ds that you've shared: discipline, determination. You have to be destined minded, and also be diligent in your work. That said, I know you as also somebody who is a very spiritual person. Like, I think the people are commenting you're a pastor. Why is this important to you? Why is this part of your life also very integral to the person that you are? Why did you think you had to marry the two, being a career person, but also being somebody who is spiritually active?
Yeah, combining spiritual excellence, or combining spiritual commitment and academic excellence or career excellence, for me, I find those things to be in the same place. In the Bible, I'm inspired by two characters, Joseph as well as Daniel. If you read these accounts in your Bible, you find that Joseph rose, even from the days that he was just a slave boy, sold in Egypt, and he was working in Potiphar's house. He was very diligent, hardworking, applied himself very strongly, was maintaining godly principles. And we know that God is a source of all blessing and all success. So no one can be successful in this life if the hand of the Lord is not upon you. And I decided at a very young age to commit my life to Christ and to serve him. And I believe that as you're doing your secular work, whatever career work you're doing, it is all to the glory of God, and say therefore very, very important to maintain a strong spiritual life. It gives you that balance, that control, even all these things that people are talking about today, ethics, all these are built in your Christian faith. So I must say that as a person, you cannot have your spiritual side blank, because after career, after work, after the money, there comes a point where your life needs to be filled with something, and this is your creator. And it's very important for a person to have a relationship with their creator, and that is what makes me to be what I am, to just belong to my creator and serve him with all my heart, whilst I'm also doing my other career that I'm doing currently.
Mm-hmm. That said, Ben, I want to pose this question to you, to say that I find that there is a disconnect between the people that we are on Sunday, as people, most people that are Christians. There's a disconnect between the person that you're on Sunday and the person that you are between Monday and Saturday. It's almost like you take God, you meet God on Sunday, and then the rest of the days you're doing your own thing. What can you say to that? How do you bridge the gap so that we are with him 24/7 in everything that we're doing? How do we implement that in our own lives?
Every person must realize that they don't just need God on a Sunday, you need God every day of your life. So in my case, from a very young age, maybe through my parents taking me to Sunday school, yes, we'd go to church on a Sunday, but we always had prayers in the home and believing that for you to be guided every day, you'll be guided by the Lord. And so it has been an integral part of my life from a very young age. By the time I was studying my Form 1 in secondary school, I decided to have this identity that I belong to Christ and therefore I must profess him. And the Bible tells us that we are the light and the salt of the world, and you must always have your light on all the days of your life, wherever you are. And I must tell you that I've been in places where my identity has been questioned, and I've not hidden the fact that I'm a Christian. I love God. And every day I know wherever I am supposed to live for him. I'm just here as an ambassador of a particular kingdom. So every day of my life, I have to live my life knowing that I belong to God, I belong to Christ. And so it's not something that I just do on a Sunday, I do it every day of my life. And even my family. And you see, now that I'm married, I've got children, they see me on a daily basis. And they are the ones who can even bear testimony whether I'm a Christian or not, based on what they see on a daily basis. So it's important to maintain that consistency of being a Christian every day of your life.
Mm-hmm. How do you build that identity, though? You've mentioned the word identity, and I think that it's a very integral part. Like your identity informs everything else that you do in your life, how you show up and the results that you get and the beliefs that you have, like the behavior pattern that you show. How do you, in these times where it's so easy to digress and everyone else is doing something that is different, how does one hold on to that identity of saying, this is who I am, I'm a Christian, or I'm this and this is what I'm going to follow? How do you build that that strength in your identity or in the values that you have?
That identity is very easy to build if you want to decide for Christ. And if you take it the Bible way, we are taught in is that Psalm number 1, very, very powerful. And this is one of the Psalms that both my father and my mother read for me when I was very young. And they said, blessed is the one who does not walk in the step of the wicked, or stand in the way of the sinners, or sit in the company of mockers. But you delight in the law of the Lord all the day of your life, and you meditate on his law day and night. And this person is like a tree that is planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and its leaf does not wither, and everything you do prospers. So in my case, I said, for me to be successful, I need to be in God, I need to be in Christ. And that has helped me to be who I am today. And sometimes I sit there, I look at people who used to know me when I was in secondary school, because that's when I thought I built a lot of character and identity. When they see me today, do they see two different people, or they see the same one? But I also don't do it for the sake of people. I do it because God is the one who sees our hearts. Wherever we are, in whatever we do, he's the one who knows us. And it's very important for you to maintain that relationship with God. And once you have that relationship with God, that identity comes from him. And life has got meaning and purpose, because all these things in the end are vanity. But if your spiritual life is being led by God, you become a person who is very principled. And the fact that you fear God, it just helps you to be sober-minded, make the right decision, and being a person who can be of influence, because you're being led by the power from on high.
All right. Very well said, and I love that psalm that you've quoted. But I also want to bring in this element of like how you have your identity and you're working in an environment where not everyone shares the same identity with you. I mean, like in Malawi, there's all sorts of talk about corruption. There's all sorts of talk about things not going well. And I think the majority of the people of this country are Christians, right? There are people that go to church every Sunday, right?
Yes.
How do we really, if we say we are Christians and we're people that go to church every Sunday, how come we're not able to showcase what being godlike is in our daily lives, in our businesses, in the corporate world? Like people, you hear stories of people killing themselves because of difficult bosses, but those bosses are Christians. Where is the disconnect, Pastor?
Well, there's a lot of disconnect, and sometimes it's people look away. Let's come to the scenario where Peter found himself in at the time that Christ was being crucified and has been arrested and is going to go and undergo trial, and after that trial, we know all what happened thereafter. So Peter is being asked, we know that you're one of them and you're with him, and Peter decided to deny the faith at that point. The question is, how many people are willing to stand up even when push comes to shove? When money is pushed to your account, when you didn't work for it, what are you going to say? It becomes actually very shocking sometimes when people get arrested for fraud or the popular or the famous cash get. Some of the people who got arrested at that time or continue to be arrested are people that are church going, people that we know we are standing for the truth. But you see, it's those inner battles that we face as individuals. And if we don't win the inner battles, we also lose the outer battles. So it starts with the values that we build in the home. The little spoon of sugar that you're taking without permission, that thing that you took and you didn't want anybody to know. Those things manifest as, if you're not faithful in small things, then as you get entrusted with bigger things, it just becomes inevitable. And as we speak now, we hold various positions in in these organizations. We're entrusted with a lot. And the question, what now? It comes down to your integrity to say, am I going to spoil my name just because of a million kwacha, because of some 10 million kwacha here and there? I made a decision a very long time ago that I better have a good name than to amass wealth and property that does not belong to me in the name of trying to look big in the crowd. But I'm also quick to point out that in the Christian circles, most recently, I think maybe in the last 10 years or so, I know it's not a gospel. It's just that there's been emphasis on prosperity. So people are under pressure to demonstrate that God is blessing, God is moving, and therefore the way we've measured blessing is by how many houses you have, what type of car you drive. And these pressures of life and these things that we try to cling to, they have led many into sorrow. So we're in a time where we need Christians that can stand up and be the light and be the difference. I know sometimes it comes to the point of life and death. I know people that have been threatened with their own very lives if they don't participate in a particular scheme. But I think one needs to stand up to say, what does it benefit for me that I gain all these things, but in the end lose my own soul? So it's very important to stand very strong and very firm. And in these days, we need Christians that can stand up and be the difference and not be party to these corrupt deals or anything that is illegal in nature or ungodly in nature.
Very well said. Thank you for touching on that. And speaking of finances, you are a family man, you are a respected man in society, you have a beautiful family. How do we as families, right? I want you to speak to this. How do we as families build financial resilience in times that we're passing through now? How should families be handling their finances? What are the basics, you being a numbers person?
Actually, let me give a little background before I answer that question to say, every time that we talk about finances, we need to embrace a principle called frugality or prudence. This is something that our Lord Jesus taught us in the book of John, chapter 6, when he multiplied the bread around verse number 12 to 14. You see, after multiplying the bread, there was just too much. People ate and there was so much that was left over. And when it was left over, Jesus said, gather the 12, gather the whatever it meant. And they gathered, I'm told, as many as 12 baskets.
Yes.
And it starts from there to say, when we get resources, are we careful with those resources? Because now what has happened in these last 2 years of COVID and the like, Ukraine war, is that there's been additional pressure that is testing even those that are very good with money. So let's start with the principles. I've taught on this topic many times about financial management. We must embrace an economic principle called resources are scarce. And because resources are scarce, they must be used prudently. And frugality is the opposite of being prodigal, being wasteful. Whenever you find money, you get excited, people throw parties. Actually, some of the people that are in financial problems now, their problems started when they had abundance. There was a point, there was a moment when they had resources, they had it well, and you find that most people waste it away. And we are taught through scripture that we must go to the ant and learn from it, that in the time of summer, it gathers its food, so that when the winter comes, it has got enough resources. Now, when we talk of winter in other countries, it's characterized by rain. So let's just say when the rainy season comes, you should be able to have reserves. Not many people live by that principle. Whatever comes is chewed and finished. There's no anywhere to turn to. And that for me is the biggest problem that is putting a lot of people under pressure, because they don't have reserves for their own. Whenever there's a problem, the school fees, they look in all directions. Such people, as to our earlier topic, can easily get tempted into these other ungodly means of earning resources. So if we want to talk about finances, let's look at whether it's a family, an individual, anybody. Let's look at how much do you earn. From what you earn, can you afford the lifestyle that you're living? I always insist that whatever you earn, save at least 10 to 20% of that into some kind of saving or some kind of investment. Put money away that you cannot touch. Because literally, I give this story to say, when you were an accounts clerk, assuming in the financial career, an accounts clerk or any other level of clerk, you are living in a high density area. I will not mention names for the sake of respect, but you know, these highly populated areas, a house of 20,000, you're able to live, you're able to buy a bag of maize, and you're able to live your life, go to work and come. They promote you to assistant accountant, you want to change houses, you move from that low, high density area to some medium density area so people can see. Now, the minute you change houses, you need to change curtains, you need to change furniture. You can no longer eat the kind of stuff that you used to eat in that place. You don't want to impress people. So if you used to eat cassava, now you want to add bread and all these other things. Then they make you accountant. Oh my word, you want to move now into a mini suburb. And once you go in there, if you were taking minibus to go to work, you say, no, in this area, everybody has got a car, let me have a car. And not many people who have got cars can actually afford them. If you are complaining that fuel is expensive, you're complaining that motor car parts are expensive, it means you've not reached that level. Lo and behold, people do that. And the minute they make you a head of department, then you want to live in this palace full of flair and fragrance. And that is putting people under a lot of pressure. To sustain such kind of lifestyles is very difficult. Sometimes we need to be able to say, fine, I've been promoted, I'll still maintain my lifestyle. Whatever is coming on top, let me save it away for future use. And that's where a lot of people miss it. So the way we manage resources when they come in our hands is really a problem for many people. We live lives that won't impress others. We want to be seen that we went to the lake and we had all these fancy photos. When you cost that whole experience, it's actually 3 or 4 months salary. You look at young people today, they want to get married. You don't have the resources, but you want to stage this wedding at BICC and all these fancy venues. And if you cannot finance 90% of your wedding from your savings, then you're just creating problems for yourselves. My wife and I, when we were getting married, we didn't have a loan for our wedding, and we were able to finance at least 90% of whatever was needed without borrowing from anybody. And when we started off our marriage, there was anybody every service provider we needed to pay for what related to our wedding was paid cash. We didn't owe anybody.
That's adorable. Yeah. That's admirable. I don't think most people would say that. You start having the bonus on the day of the wedding.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Very, very well answered, and a lot of nuggets in that answer. And I hope that our audience, they're picking one or two lessons from what you're saying. I think that financial prudence is something that we all can exercise, and we can literally cut off some of these pressures that we're finding ourselves in at the moment. Now, in terms of still on the element of finances, right? You find that you're having a lot of issues where men are committing suicide because of financial pressures, because of other financial problems. And I want you to touch on this topic to say, is it safe that we should still just believe that the men are the providers of the home and they know where to source the money, and we don't talk about money? Or as families, we have to start to open up more about what's happening in terms of our finances? What's the best way of handling finances in terms of the money conversation in the home?
First and foremost, I don't know who brought in the idea that the man is a provider. I have not read it anywhere. I've tried to read my Bible, and I haven't read it anywhere that the man is a provider. But somehow that narrative has been carried along, and it is creating pressure. What I know is that Scripture talk of a man and a woman and helping each other. In fact, the Bible talks about a helpmate suitable. And by the time you get to Proverbs 31, you see a woman who is also able to work together with her husband to raise resources for homes. But we've got some societal undertones that put pressure on men. And these pressures not just come from a wife, but also society aside, society in general. So this principle of achimwene is a very heavy one. Achimwene, amalume. So when you look at an average man today who's working, and for example, you're 35, you're 40, I can assure you that you're going to have nieces, you're going to have nephews, you're going to have aunties that are looking up to you. And somehow people believe that the man is going to be a machine that's going to be minting money and spreading this money in all directions. And talking of financial pressure, it is indeed a big, big issue where people are putting pressure on men or also. So let's start with wives. Wives are expecting that the man who is a provider, so he has to do everything. My take on this one is that both husband and wife are working together, and they must work together on providing resources for the home. In this day and age, women get educated, get jobs, get to also hold senior positions. And I must salute their women. And this is not to undermine women that on their own are able to provide for their children, for their homes. There are very many examples of women like that. But we've got a section of society that believes that it's all going to be the man. And behind the man, we've also got what is called the black tax, where one family or one person should be shouldering the burden. I mean, if you just look around this time now, it's time for fertilizers as people are going to be planting. So there's requests coming from left, right, and center. If you look at myself, there'll be days on a day I will get maybe 6 phone calls. This one asking for borrowing of so much money. This one is asking for fertilizer. This is asking for fees. This one doesn't have rent, and all these things come on you. Now, if you decide to be the village headman and try to support all these people, it won't work. And throughout my life, I've learned to be assertive. And sometimes when I tell people I don't have money, they look at me and say, but the way you're dressed, the way you're looking, how come you are saying you don't have money? It's true, because my money doesn't just stay. The money that I'm reserving for my children's education, there's money that I've saved away. There's money now that I say, this is for my family. There's money that I say now, this is mine. Now, the money that I say is now my change and pocket. It's very little, because all the big money has gone into all this. It's all planned out. So I don't have money floating anywhere that is just left like that. So I think society should learn to say everybody should be able to look after their own selves. Don't run your family expecting that another family will be looking into your affairs, or sending your children to very expensive schools expecting that some uncle somewhere will come in. Cut your jacket according to the size of your clothes. Don't expect other people to put pressure. Now, let's learn to say no where we can't. This pressure to impress, trying to show that you are a World Bank, you are an IMF, you can't do it. It's not possible. There's high inflation. There's things that have just gone up. Things are just not, and I mean, there are things that I myself have had to cut from my budget. And somebody's expecting me that I can just say, here is 100,000 for you to do what? I mean, 100,000 is money that I pay maybe 2 workers to work for me the whole month. And somebody just wants it for a weekend because they need a new dress to go and dress at some bridal shower. I've learned to be very assertive and say no to people. And some of them feel that you're not Christian enough, you're not helpful enough. But you see, it's not just sustainable. People should be able to manage their resources as well.
Very, very important conversation and very good answer. I think that it's a high time that as people we develop boundaries, right? I think you're talking about boundaries there, and it's important that even as men, it's okay for you to say you don't have the money, instead of every time you say I'm okay, I'm gonna sort out, when you know that you're going to find yourself in other in deeper problems. All right, and then moving on, if Pastor, you're here now and you've done all these things with your life and you're somebody that we look up to, how do we, like, if you were to speak to your young self, like the 20-year-old Ben, about money, about relationships, about life, about, success, what would you tell that young man?
For young people today, I will say that please, number one, be patient with yourself. What I see a lot, I would have started from somewhere, but I must start by this one to say, be patient with yourself. You don't just become what Benedicto is overnight. It took a lot of years for me to be where I am. So patience is very important. And this patience, now, since you talked about relationships, I'm also addressing issue of girlfriends and boyfriends who are trying to get started in life. Life is in stages and men are in sizes. You cannot just become this wonder person in no time. So patience is number one. Please, things take time. There's a process. We are living in a time where we won't have everything immediately. I mean, I grew up in days of having no microwave. I grew up in days when we didn't have a TV in our own house. So I think maybe we grew up in a life where we just accepted life the way it was. We didn't need much. Most recently, there's been this talk about bridal showers where people are saying for you to host a bridal shower, then there's a whole list of kitchen items that are needed on day one. When I looked at one of those lists, I said, these are things that have taken me and my wife maybe sometimes 10 to 15 years to have them. For example, let me be very clear here. We only bought our double door fridge after 15 years, if not 17 years of marriage. And someone wants to have a double door fridge on day one of being married. I think that is not realistic. We only had our first TV when we were married, and it didn't have a VCR. We had to be borrowing that place, that thing where you put cassette, that cassette player. We had to be borrowing for about 3 months before we bought our own. And that was because me and herself were all patient with ourselves, and it took a process. So young people need to be very patient. Anybody who's young today, be patient. But when we say be patient, we're also saying have a destiny in mind. So those 4 Ds that I'm talking about, be destiny conscious. So that is a simple way of saying have a vision for your life. What do you want to become? Now, a lot of people have visions, and I know that they aspire to become this great person in their career. But behind that, there has to be a lot of work. So that's where the diligence comes in. So if you know that you want to be in Cairo by someday, start walking a journey that takes you towards Karonga, goes into Tanzania, you go through whatever forests are there, you go into Kenya, you're going to pass through Sudan, and then somehow you find yourself in Cairo. Just to give a picture. So as much as you've got a vision, you need to start a journey now that works towards that vision. And that is the work that people need to put in. And earlier on, you were asking me about whether you're just an intelligent kid or whatever. I said it also took a lot of hard work. Whatever I've become, whatever I've possessed, whatever I've become has been a product of a lot of hard work through diligence. So young people today must be patient, have a vision, but work towards that vision.
Very good points. I think that we have to be spending more time on the element of defining our vision.
Yes.
Because sometimes you find that people don't even know what they want, they don't know where they're going, and they just living the same day over and over and over again without any destination. So I think it's important that we really, as a nation, as a people, we have to have deliberate conversations where we are really teaching and learning about these things, because I see that this is what our friends are doing outside Malawi. A lot of people, they are progressing because they are deliberately creating platforms where people are always learning.
Exactly.
People are talking about visions. People are talking about what it is to plan. People are doing masterminds. I think this is the thing that for most of us, we feel like we just want to do things alone. How do we change that mindset to say that, as they say, if you've got people that are entrepreneurs, young people that are entrepreneurs, they're manufacturers, why is it that we do not cultivate a spirit of working together and sharing ideas and pulling each other up, and we want to like disintegrate and everyone to stand on their own? I don't know, as from a biblical perspective or from your perspective, how can we begin to change this sort of mindset that we have where you feel like you have to go at it alone?
Sometimes I say people who go it alone, I don't blame them to begin with, although it's not the ideal way. Because I myself have tried to do, let's say, business with some colleagues, but not everybody is as patient as I am. I'm a very patient person in whatever I'm doing.
Okay.
And so you do partner with people that want to see success tomorrow. And I tell them it doesn't work like that. So it has been a journey of trying to find like-minded people to try and work on certain projects or initiatives with, including my own wife. I remember one time when we were building a house, and we got to a point where we said, we can't afford renting out anymore, let's go into this house. And they asked me a question to say, when will this house be ready, like looking like posh and it's all tiled? And I told them it's going to take us 3 years to finish. And you almost like, you know, that moment where people want to stone you. And I'm giving you a story to say that people are not patient for the results that they want. When you talk of business, people want to start a business tomorrow, and we want to start a business today, and next month that business is paying school fees at some high-end school. It's able to feed them. Building a business takes years. I was humbled the other day when I met this family business, and they told me that their family had been in business for 800 years. And I said, they've been doing farming business for 800 years? They said, yes. What we are today, our grandfather started it 800 years ago. I've also got an Indian friend of mine who told me that his great-grandfather, maybe 5 generations before him, came to Malawi and they were selling cloth. Like, you know, that movement of Indians who came to Malawi and they were just selling cloth
Yes.
in the shops in Limbi and going to these other markets in the rural areas. When Malawi was not even developed, it was way before, I think in 1900s. And that generation passed, and in the generation in the 50s started selling nails and roof sheets, malata, literally. And from that business, they built it up, and in the late 80s, they moved into hardware. From the hardware, they now, in the 90s, I think coming to the turn of the 2000s, that's when they opened a food processing factory. And in fact, this friend of mine had just returned from the UK after attending a master's to go and manage his family business to be converting Nandoro into some export. They call it whatever they call it when they process.
Yes.
And you can see that these people have been very patient over 100 years of building that enterprise. And the working together you're talking about, it takes people that are like-minded and are patient. The question I'm going to ask you is that how many people can you find in a room that are patient to say, guys, I want us to start something. It's going to pay us off in 3 years' time, in 5 years' time, in 10 years' time. Most people will say, abandon it. But those that have persisted on that path today are reaping the fruits. And me as a father, I think of my children and say, whatever I'm starting, whatever I'm doing, I should not look at me. I should not look at benefiting today. I should do things that will benefit future generations. And Irina, can I challenge you that I'm looking for partners like that? I'm not finding them.
Okay.
So what do you do? So sometimes going alone looks like a strange thing, but sometimes you have to do like that. But nonetheless, it's very important to start pulling in the same direction. And one
Yes.
of the success stories that we have in Malawi is these cooperatives. I know, like those colleagues that are doing rice farming, I see them putting great success stories there. We've seen what the farmers of Zuzu Coffee are doing.
Yeah.
There are some that are doing sugarcane farming. Those are pockets of success cooperatives that are bringing success that we can learn from. The question
Yeah.
is, how can we build this to everything else? I mean, if you hear, for example, what are called building societies, as the name suggests, it's a coming together of people that saved money to help each other build houses. How
Yes.
can we make that concept work? Now, the problem sometimes is that there are also people who, okay, when you're too honest, when you're too naive, there are then people who mobilize others in the interest of saying, let's do things together when they know that their intention is to dupe others. So
Yeah.
others have been let down because others have duped others. And so
Yeah.
we need to come to a point where we're a society driven by values. And when we want to do things, we've got the integrity, it's transparent, and we can work together for a long-term vision. The day we become long-term thinking people and can work together on something persistently without giving up, we are going to become a very successful society.
Yeah. Very well said, and I think that that's the starting point. The values aspect, like building a specific identity that is a successful, that is success minded. I think that is the starting point, and I think that having conversations like this, it's a starting point. It's a small start, yes, but it's important that we grow these conversations and we start to pull together in the same direction. Thank you so much for all the insight that you've given us in the show. But before I let you go, I'll just ask you a few questions that are just, we just want to hear your answers for these few questions, and then we're going to close. Who do you admire and why?
I admire so many people. Asking me to choose one is going to be very difficult. Let me, okay, my wife will tell you that I'm somebody who follows a lot Miles Monroe. He's late, but he
Love
lives
him.
on. He is a
Yeah.
man of purpose. I
Yes.
think for me, his teachings on potential and purpose have shaped who I am today. And whenever I'm teaching or I'm speaking about issues of potential talent, I tend to refer to his material. So I think if there's one person that I've looked up to and I've admired greatly is Miles Monroe. I think he influenced quite a number of things upon my life.
All right.
But there are many, but the one that stands out in the moment is Miles Monroe.
Okay, great. What books have impacted your life and that you can be able to share with us right now? If somebody wanted to pick up a book that has impacted your life, what would you tell them?
Besides the Bible, which is the master book that everybody needs to be reading, several of them, but maybe for the sake of the audience that is watching us tonight, can I recommend that everybody reads Rich Dad Poor Dad?
By
In the
Robert
context of
Kiyosaki.
Malawi, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, very, very powerful life lessons about purpose and how to be successful. I've got, actually where I am, I'm in my home library. I've got, my wife and I have got hundreds of books, some are in cartons. I would have recommended even 20 books. But for tonight, Rich Dad Poor Dad, very powerful lesson of life.
All right. And what is a non-negotiable part of your life? Like of your day, not life, but what is a non-negotiable part of your life? Do you have that?
Yes, and I think it was answered in the very first question, and that is to maintain my integrity. And that's one thing my father taught me, and I live by. So whatever happens to you, leave a good name. Never spoil your name. And I've held on to that principle from the time I was maybe 10 years old to now. So my integrity is not something that I will trade for anything. It's not even worth $1 billion. Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful. And what is the habit that has helped you in your career or in your life?
the habit of getting results. You need to be somebody who can be seen to be, you get results. So I love getting things done. You give me an assignment, I'll get things done. And if you were to ask me, how did I rise to be a deputy managing director? How did I rise to be who I am? I get results, I deliver. Give me an assignment, consider it done. And I even ask for more. So build a career around yourself, or build a reputation of somebody who delivers on their word.
That is so powerful. Thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for having said yes to this conversation. And I'm sure that our audience has gotten a whole lot of value from this discussion, including me, and I'm going to be reaching out. Otherwise, thank you so much for this evening. I wish you a very lovely evening. Thank you guys for having been on the other side watching. It was nice to see a number of people watching this conversation, and I hope that you're going to have action points. I'm going to pick up Rich Dad, Poor Dad again and reread it. And yeah, just to also just been reminded about the importance of having an identity and having values and being a person who is able to bring results. I think talk is cheap, but results is what makes the difference. So let's inculcate that mindset. That's the Nditha mindset, that, you know, you're not just talking about things, but you're literally actioning them and doing them. Until next week, this is Irene Patso. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Ben. Thank you. Have a lovely evening.
And thank you for having me here. All the best to our audience. Bye.
Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.